Sometimes we look at serious film history rooted in real-world events, or the evolution of genres, or the oeuvre of auteur film directors and their influence of cult films, and all of that is fun stuff. But today's episode of Microgenre is just pure fun and silliness and not at all serious. Today, we are going to look at the three-film career of basketball legend and pop culture icon Shaquille O'Neal, and why it took just 3 movies to begin and then end his acting career. And I know that's harsh, because if you look at his filmography on IMDb, you'll see dozens of roles in all kinds of stuff, including a couple more recent favorites of mine. His turn in Fresh Off the Boat. All the Shaq references are dope in that show. And also in Hubie Halloween, where he plays the radio DJ. It's an Adam Sandler Netflix movie, and he pops up as the radio DJ, but they redub his voice. And this is kind of what I mean. Shaq plays himself in almost every role after these 3 movies we're about to discuss, and it's always a quick cameo. He always kills it, there's no shade, but I realized a couple things. He never really got another lead acting role or opportunity like he did in these 3 movies, and I had never seen any of them, which is kind of unusual for me. So I thought this would be fun. I tracked down a copy of each of these movies. I'm going to watch them and then see just how bad it gets. A few things to note: I'm not a sports guy, I'm not a fan of Shaq's basketball, but I do like pop culture, and Shaq is all over pop culture. So yeah, we're going to cover Blue Chips, Kazam, and Steel. Yeah, it's going to be that kind of episode. So from what I understand, Blue Chips is going to be a pretty good and respectable basketball movie. Kazam is going to be a terrible kids movie about a boy and his genie, and Steel is the Superman movie we got in the 90s, and I assume it's going to be pretty bad, because this was his last leading role, and because nobody is talking about Steel in an era where superhero movies are constantly being resurrected, like Tobey Maguire popping up in Spider-Man 3, or Michael Keaton playing Batman in that Flash movie with the creepy guy that plays the Flash. I'm hoping for Batman and Robin level bad out of Steel, but I guess we're gonna see.
We're gonna start right now. 0 for 1. No. Come on, kid. That was the pass.
Okay, so Blue Chips is no doubt our most respectable Shaq vehicle. As the opening credits roll, we're hit with talent after talent: Nick Nolte, Mary McConnell, J.T. Walsh, Alfred Woodard, Louis Gossett Jr., Ed O'Neill, and a whole bunch of real basketball players, if that's something that you care about. It was also directed by William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, or The French Connection fame, or I quite liked his movie The Sorcerer, though like Blue Chips, it was not a financial success. Shaq got a Razzie for his performance, but the rest of the cast delivers. Nolte plays a cantankerous basketball coach trying to avoid the pitfalls of professional sports, specifically corruption. Coming off of a losing season, he tries to recruit 3 new players, and we get to see what compromises people make in these situations. Shaq is one of the new players, so it's not exactly a starring role, but aside from Nolte, it's an ensemble cast, and I would say Shaq was memorable and charming in the film.
So why are we here?
We're here because maybe I want to go to college and maybe I don't. I won't know until I get in and find out how much bullshit it really is.
Okay. I'll make you a bet for real. I bet you $100 that you can't score 700 points on your SATs.
I'll score 700 in my sleep. For $100, I'll score 800.
There are better basketball movies for sure, but there are also worse basketball movies. So, did we all enjoy the high point? Because we're just going to go down now. Let us descend, shall we?
Welcome back to Inside the Lights. Shaquille O'Neal.
We shoot
So you know when somebody gets a script through an actor's trainer's hairdresser? Well, that's exactly how a movie like Kazam gets made. Somebody in a position to make movies mentions that Shaq would play a genie for whatever random reason is in their head, and then deals are struck because everybody wants to make some money. The script can come later, but not too much later because Shaq only has so many weeks before the next basketball season. So from the moment Paul Glazer, and that's Starsky from Starsky and Hutch, from the moment that Starsky says Shaq should play a genie to the moment that he gets a green light from the studio with a fully written script is 10 weeks. And the craziest part is that we're supposed to believe that any of this was actually written in a script.
Who dare to wake me?
This is the kind of movie where in one scene the genie's like losing all of his power and to the bad guys and they're beating him, and then he simply just decides, nah, I want to win. And so he just gets more power, finds the strength. Like, it's really dumb, and I'm not sure what else there is to say about it. It's astounding that way. Shaq contributed to the soundtrack, but you don't want to see that either.
That's all you gotta tell.
You got to listen to my rap from bell to bell. Those babies had rabies, and we was in Hades because we moved with the harem of the Prince of Aquitaine.
Did you know that Starsky also directed The Running Man? I mean, we could be talking about a Shaq Running Man sequel. Even direct-to-video, it would be better than this.
Now, who's that sorry wannabe that disturbed my Z's?
Now, at first, I didn't want to mention the kid in the movie. Sure, he seemed like a talentless little potato, your typical child actor, and I didn't really want to punch down, you know? If this was your one chance, the only thing you ever did, and you peaked at 11, I'm not the kind of guy that wants to drag a kid for that, you know? But then I looked him up just to be thorough and make sure, and it turns out it wasn't the only thing this kid did, and I'm not talking just about Free Willy 2, but also that. No, anybody who watched Veronica Mars is doing a double take right now to find out that Weevil, played by Francis Capra, is the kid from Kazam. He's been in other shows, and maybe I'm just talking to a very specific generation of peoples here, but Veronica Mars' first 2 seasons are worth watching. They're highly recommended, and Weevil's character is pretty beloved. And I mean, look at this guy. Who'd have thunk that he was the Kazam kid? Oh no. I'm not going to be able to unsee the Kazam kid now, am I? And I just did it to all of you. I am so sorry. But you know, you should still watch Veronica Mars. It's still pretty damn good. So Veronica Mars was a quick flash, but it burned brightly for those few years. Capra was great in that show, and now you see why I don't want to just blindly crap on someone, even if they were part of Kazam. Shaq got $7 million for the film, and it would be easy to say that he just went for the bag, but whatever the quality of the material, I think Shaq kind of gives it his all. And I'm not saying Shaq's a good actor, but in this case, I don't think it's entirely fair to blame him considering what there was to work with. This is the same time when Michael Jordan had Space Jam, and suffice to say, Kazam was a box office dud. I can't imagine what kind of teasing Shaq would have had to put up with from other players. I wonder if he thought that he could change our minds with his next movie. He did not.
Put your helmet on.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Put your helmet on. That's a pass. That's a pass. Put your helmet on.
1997 saw the first 2 live-action black superhero movies, one being Spawn and the other being Steel, neither being particularly good. The character of John Henry Irons is pretty beloved as Steel in the comics. After they killed Superman in the 90s, DC gave us 4 new Supermen to replace him, and Steel was one of them. Irons, like Tony Stark, made the suit himself, and it was meant to mimic Superman's power, super strength, flight, etc., as a tribute to the Man of Steel. That's sort of where the trouble starts. Warner Brothers was planning on a Superman movie based on the death of Superman that would have led into this spin-off Steel movie similar to the events in the comic, but when the Superman movie never materialized, Steel suffered. Shaq's Steel doesn't fly. There's no super speed, so when he needs to flee, he has to jog like a basketball player wearing a suit of armor. Or he does the Batman grappling hook stunt, but way slower than Batman. Or when he exits the scene by stepping onto an escalator and is magically whisked away.
Y'all be cool now.
And the suit is also pretty terrible. A couple of thoughts.
Damn, homie! What the hell is that?
It's like the Star Trek The Next Generation Ambo Jitsu suits. It looks like he's trying to cosplay as the Iron Giant and failing miserably. Was the only other option Dennis Rodman's costume from Simon Says, and this was the winner by comparison? There was no S on the chest, no prime motivation for him to become Steel, and his primary weapon is this very unique sledgehammer, which in the movie is mostly used as a gun, which is disappointing. I mean, I like that it has multiple uses, but to mainly use it as a gun constantly makes it a gun that can be used as a hammer, which he doesn't really because he has got a gun. There's a couple Shaq free throw jokes. There's also a pretty sus gay joke thrown in because the 90s. This is very indicative of a superhero movie in 1997, where between Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, Spawn was just being released and Blade and X-Men were a few years away yet. Think of big studio adventure movies at the time. The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, The Phantom with Billy Zane, Cutthroat Island with Geena Davis, Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone. These were all blockbuster movies made for 14-year-olds, and most of them bombed. Steel was just another one of them. Now, if I haven't mentioned the fact that Judd Nelson is in it as the bad guy, that's because it really doesn't matter. I found it interesting that he has a couple of insecure rake moments where he squints his disapproval of Shaq's friendship with this white woman.
Your new alloy really kept the barrel cool.
Cool, just like you.
Okay, I'll back.
Now, what about the data display? Is that working?
Or when he clearly wants to call Shaq something really awful.
I should bust your ass for what you did to Sparky.
Bust my ass? Do you know where I was headed? You know what I could have done with those military resources? You stupid.
But he doesn't get a cool suit of his own or any powers or develop into anything other than a nasty, self-important bigot with delusions of grandeur. Well, alright, I mean, I guess that sounds authentic at least. You might be better off watching Blank Man or Meteor Man, which are both black superhero movies, but forgiven their cheesiness because of the intentional comedy. That's not really surprising. You could say that these were not great vehicles to propel Shaq forward or give him his best shot at success in the acting world, but you could just as easily say that Shaq just isn't a great actor. I think either could be correct, but the mix of the two is enough of a track record for that to set a precedent, and Shaq doesn't have to be a great actor to play himself or make fun of himself a bit, and Shaq has a legendarily great sense of humor, so it's fun to see him pop up everywhere in the little cameos.
You got it, and I'll be watching you.
So that's it. Just 3 movies. And Shaq is gonna have to live with that. That and his 2 video games. And his platinum-selling rap album and his many, many championship trophies. So just that, and these 3 movies. And a net worth of over $400 million. And being the spokesperson for the FTX crypto scam that lost billions of dollars and is now being sued. Yeah, that last one was a bad one. But that's it. Just that, and those 3 movies. The Shaq Trinity.
Thank you.